What's going on, gardeners? Did you know that sometimes knowing your hardness zone or your last frost date is not enough to plan when to plant your tomatoes outside? Your hardness zone is totally irrelevant for an annual vegetable garden because the hardness zones are zones representing the average annual minimal winter temperature divided into 10 degree zones. And this data is totally irrelevant for your plants that won't grow in the winter time. Next, you have your last frost date that will tell you when is most likely that a frost won't hit your garden. This will guarantee that your tomatoes will most likely survive if you plant them after this date. Survive, not thrive. So, when is the best time that you plant your tomatoes outside so that they will thrive and not just survive? Hey, for all of you that are new here, I'm Jan and welcome to my small garden quest where you can see my gardening journey and learn a lot about gardening. And now, without further ado, let's dig into the main content. As you already know, if you follow me, back in March I started to grow my tomatoes from seed. It was quite a journey, checking every day that they have enough water and enough sunlight so they can grow properly. At first, they were quite small, and as the last frost date was approaching, my worries that they won't grow in time were getting bigger and bigger. But then, all of a sudden, few weeks prior to the last frost date, they started to grow faster and faster, and now they're almost a foot tall. It would be all good if I could plant them outside, but now, a good week after my last frost date, my tomatoes are still inside and they are beginning to look a little bit yellow. You can imagine where my stress level is right now, wondering if they will survive until I can plant them outside. And right now, you're probably wondering, why, if my last frost date passed, I didn't plant my tomatoes outside? Let me share you one important lesson I learned last year that will also answer the question, when is the best time to plant tomatoes? Although tomatoes can survive temperatures just about freezing, meaning 33 degrees Fahrenheit or 1 degree Celsius, they don't like it to be that cold. Tomatoes are heat-loving plants. They like to grow outside when temperatures don't fall under 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. And if the temperatures do fall under this threshold, tomatoes can show signs of problems like reduced pollen production and reduced overall growth of the plant. That is why the last frost date is not much of a help when planning when to plant our tomatoes outside. Also, a rule like plant your tomatoes 1 week after your last frost date is not much of a help either. And don't be fooled by some high day temperatures, because you can have 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 24 degrees Celsius during the day and still see the mercury drop under 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius during the nighttime. The only thing to consider when planting tomatoes outside is the weather forecast. It needs to show night temperatures more than 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius for the foreseeing future. So, the answer to the question on when you can plant tomatoes outside is simple. You need to check your weather forecast, and when you see that the night temperatures won't fall under 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius, you're ready to go and plant them outside. But if you don't want to wait the night temperatures to rise and you want to plant your tomatoes earlier than that, there are a few things you can do that will allow you to do so. One thing you can do is to plant your tomatoes in a polytunnel or greenhouse. An expensive solution, but when adding all the months of tomato growth, it can quickly add up. Another thing you can do is to build them a hoop house, like me. Just make sure to close it during the night and open it during the day so the temperatures inside won't rise too much. Unfortunately, I can do that, or better said, it would take me too much time and effort to do so, because I live a good 20 minutes of drive away from my garden. And if you want to take an extra step, you can buy seeds that are more cold hardy, like the variety Anna Russian. These plants also withstand early light frosts, allowing you to extend the season by several weeks. Now that you know when do you plant tomatoes outside, You can go and check my tomato playlist with several tips in it, like what is the best way to water your tomato plants, or a detailed tutorial on how to prune them. If you liked the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe so you won't miss any other gardening tips and tricks. Happy gardening!